Hello and welcome to this video guide on how to compare the cultures poetry. So I'm focusing specifically on AQA, GCSE English, and it's the poetry from different cultures cluster 1 in the examples I'm going to use. Now, lots of people will tell you that when you're comparing poems, you want to think about the similarities and the differences between the poems. And that's all well and good, but I think to write really high quality analysis that's going to get you into the top grade brackets, you first of all want to be thinking about points of connection, similarities and not differences. There's got to be something in common. It's like you can't compare a chair and a dog necessarily. Okay, they've both got 4 legs, but that's where it ends. So, remember, in the exam, you're going to be given one poem in the question title. You have to write about that poem, but the question will invite you to choose another poem of your choice. Now when you're choosing that other poem, first of all you've obviously got to think about the focus of the question. It's got to be relevant to the poem in the question and to what the question's asking about. But beyond that, you've then got to start thinking about, okay, well, what points of connection are there between these poems? What things can I write about? Now I'm going to use a few examples in this video, but there's obviously loads more, so if you've got other things you can think of as well, then by all means go with them. But the examples I'm going to be thinking about in this video are first of all homesickness. We might think about the way people are described in the poems. We might think about the way places are described. You could think about the ideas of religion. You can think about the impact of one culture on another. Or indeed you could think about mankind's innate ability to be cruel. These are just 6 examples of points of connection that tie these poems together. They are not all the points of connection, not by a long shot, but it's 6 you can work from. You'll also notice if you look in the description of this video on my YouTube channel, so if you're looking on an embedded player, click through to YouTube and have a look at the video description. There's a PDF document you can download which links the poems together by these 6 points of connection, so that might be really helpful for your revision as well. So, you've got your question, you've chosen which poem you're going to compare, you then start thinking about points of connection. It's really important when you're planning to think about quotations which are going to let you compare really well, which are going to let you compare the language between the 2 poems. And first of all, I'm going to start by giving some examples of what I mean. Remember, these are just examples, it's up to you to find ones that work in the exam. So, let's first of all think about places. So that's our point of connection between the 2 poems. Imagine you've either got a question about places or a question about culture that lets you write about places. I'm going to use examples from the poem Nothing's Changed over here and the poem Island Man over here. And for Nothing's Changed, thinking about the place, I'm going to pick this quotation, the purple flowering amiable weeds. Now, I know I've got to compare that to something from Island Man. And so I've got the purple flowering amiable weeds on this side. From Island Man, I'm going to pick this one. Comes back to sands of grey metallic saw. Okay, why have I picked these 2 quotations? Now obviously they both describe the place, that's in the question, we've got to do it. But look at this. On the one hand, from Nothing's Changed, I've got the word purple to describe the weeds, and if you look at my video on Nothing's Changed, I talk about how that kind of implies that the weeds are vibrant, that he feels a kind of affinity with the weeds. And over here, in Island Man, I've got the word grey, it's drab, it's dull, it's miserable. So you have colour to describe both places, there we go, get there in the end, colour to describe both places, but you've got complete opposites in the colour, so you've got a point of connection but also a point of difference. Let's have a look at another example. So this time we're thinking about people, and on the one hand I'm going to take the quotation from Night of the Night of the Scorpion, and on the other I'm going to take Blessing, because both poems are about people, and Night of the Scorpion I'm going to take the quotation, the peasants came like swarms of flies. It's that deeply unpleasant metaphor, whereas in Blessing I'm going to take from the huts a congregation. Now here we've got the arrival of big groups of people from both poems, but again look at the language, there's a stark contrast there. Whereas in Night of the Scorpion we've got the word swarms, it's kind of unpleasant, they're out of control. In the word blessing we've got the word congregation, which implies there's something kind of nice and communal about the people coming together. It's a much more positive image. You could even actually, from Night of the Scorpion, you could also take the word peasants and compare that to congregation. And also, obviously both poems are also right for religious imagery, so they would go together really well. But you can see immediately how I compare these 2 words together, and in a minute I'll show you an example of what that comparison looks like. But one more example now of quotations that go together really well on a different point of connection. This time I'm thinking about cruelty, something which features in a lot of our poems. Okay. This time, thinking about cruelty, I'm going to take the poem Limbo on one hand, and on the other I'm going to take What Were They Like? Both poems that feature cruelty, feature violence, feature hardship and pain. And so from Limbo I'm going to take the quotation, stick is the whip and the dark deck is slavery, a very cruel quotation. And from What Were They Like? Something that's going to go hand in hand with that, link the language really well. I'm going to take laughter is bitter to the burned mouth. Okay, which two words are my particular link here? Well, this time I'm going to think about the alliterative words. So Brathwaite uses dark deck, the alliteration there, whereas if we look over here at what were they like, Levertov is using bitter and burn. So you've got alliteration in both poems showing very similar emotions and all linking through to cruelty. Okay, these are examples of the kind of words you should be looking to compare and the kind of quotations you should be tying together as you plan your essay. Let's have a look then at what an actual paragraph of an essay would look like. And if you'll excuse me for this, I'm going to have to step off screen so that you can see it. So here is our paragraph, and it's the one we were just looking at. So this is relating to cruelty. I'm just going to read it through to you. In Limbo, Brathwaite shows that mankind is capable of great cruelty. Stick is the whip and the dark deck is slavery. The word whip is reminiscent of the pain and suffering which slaves face at the cruel hands of those responsible for kidnapping from their homes. Furthermore, the metaphor stick is the whip demonstrates that the limbo stick will always serve as a reminder to the people of the Caribbean of the pain and anguish which their ancestors went through on their journey from Africa. So, started writing about limbo, analysing the language poetic devices. I'm now going to move on to what were they like. Similarly, I'm comparing, in what were they like, Levertov demonstrates the misery which humanity's great capacity for cruelty causes to the people of Vietnam. Laughter is bitter to the burned mouth. Here, the juxtaposition of laughter with the word bitter implies that the suffering which this cruelty causes has a far-reaching effect. Similarly, the invasive and graphic image of the burned mouth invokes a very real sense of pain and misery. So I've started talking about limbo, then I've talked about what were they like. Here comes my comparison, and this is why it's so important to get your quotation choice right. Interestingly, both poets use aggressive alliteration to demonstrate their emotions at the cruelty of the aggressors in each poem. Brathwaite uses the angry D sound of dark deck to show the boiling rage which still exists as a result of the abhorrent trade in human beings, whereas Levertov uses the plosive B sound of bitter and burnt to demonstrate the agony caused by the cruelty of war. So have a look at the structure of this answer again. Start by writing about our first poem. Link it to the second poem, but analyse that on its own, and then finally at the end the detailed comparison. And it's this detailed comparison at the end that's really going to lift your mark. But to do it, you've got to get your quotation choice and your planning right. Okay, so quick recap. When you're comparing the poetry from other cultures, you've got to be thinking about points of connection. The exam will give you one poem, you have to choose the other, and when you choose the other, think about the way you can link it back to the first poem. It might be with the idea of homesickness. It might be with people. It might be with the places that are described. It could be with religion. It could be with the impact of one culture or another. Or it could be with the idea of cruelty. These are just 6 ideas. There are loads more. But the key is to choose quotations which allow you to compare the language in detail. Now, I strongly recommend you click on the video description, download the PDF document in there which explains which poems relate to each of these 6 points of connection. And what you can then do is go to those poems and find quotations from each which illustrate these different points of connection. You can work out how you could compare them together. Should be a really good way to prepare for your exam. Thank you for watching. I hope it's been helpful.